afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I would like to call to order the meeting of the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. I'll ask our secretary if she would please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Jerobetko.
Here.
Then Mr. Duarte.
Present.
John Conant.
Here.
Sarah Correll. Present. John Foster.
Present.
Susana Duarte Suarez. Present. Jeff Fisher.
Here.
Lisa Hirschman. Here. Alan Hubbard.
Here.
Chris Amon.
Here.
Dan Peterson.
Here.
Chris Murphy.
Here.
John Paul.
Here.
Karen Whitehouse. Here. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a quorum. We will now, at this time, have representing IUPUI, Ms. Kathy Johnson, the interim executive vice chancellor and chief academic officer. Welcome to the remarks. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. On behalf of Nazir Paydar and I would just like to welcome all of you to our beautiful urban campus. I'm so glad that you're able to meet again at IUPUI. IUPUI certainly shares the goals that the Commission has articulated in their Reaching Higher, Achieving More strategic plan, and we're so grateful for the leadership that you provide, particularly with respect to placing students at the center of every initiative that's undertaken from its development to implementation. I know that my colleague Zeb Davenport has recently spoken with you about some of the great things that we're doing in the student success area, so I won't duplicate that. However, I would love to thank you all for the support that you have provided to this campus through our partnership with Inside Track. We've really benefited greatly from learning more about the stories of our 21st century scholars, and by strategically targeting that intervention towards students that we were most worried about serving, we've really shown significant gains this year. We had a 6% jump in retention for that group, which is phenomenal. So thank you for your support. I know that you're here to talk this afternoon about the You Can Go Back initiative, so I wanted to just quickly tell you a bit about our degree completion office, which was launched over on the edge of campus where there's free parking just over a year ago. You can see a lot about it by just Googling complete.iupui.edu. We focused that office on about 14 degree programs that were selected because they're highly flexible and because they're aligned with jobs. And we also have recently hired a faculty member to serve as a prior learning assessment coordinator to work with those degree programs and facilitate the development of portfolio review processes so that students can be credited with learning that's happened before they've arrived at IUPUI. We've seen a significant jump in the numbers of students coming to this office, I think in part because of the outreach that you've been doing. We've also been working very hard to staff the office with success coaches. We're modeling these coaches after the holistic approach that Western Governors University has taken to providing support for students. We were very fortunate to hire Allison Bell as its director away from WGU, and she's just doing a fantastic job. The number of student visits has tripled in the past year, and she also wanted me to share with you that from the original Returning Complete initiative, of the 140 students that we contacted through personal phone calls and other sorts of outreach, we had 18 students enrolled in classes this fall and another 35 students indicating that they're interested in coming back. So I really do think it's working. I think on urban campuses like ours, it's really important to have an office like this that makes it easy to navigate the complexities of going back to school. And we're just grateful to be partners with you in this initiative. So welcome. I hope you enjoy your meeting this afternoon. If there's anything that we can do to make your visit more comfortable, please don't hesitate to let us know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. You all have been wonderful hosts to us. Thank you for the breakfast. Thank you for all the accommodations. And we certainly appreciated Dr. Davenport's presentation earlier today. From the chairman's remarks, just one item before I turn it over to our commissioner for remarks. It relates to our student representative on the commission. As we know, that student representative serves a 2-year term. We currently have the honor of having that position filled by Sarah Correll. Sarah, her term ends in June. select student nominees from which the governor will make an appointment to the commission. The applications for the student commission member position will be available for applicants in the coming weeks. Any questions about the student nominating committee arts process, and if they be directed to Liz Walker, who will be able to answer any questions that you may have. And again, I would just say, Teresa, thank you for all the work that the staff has done on the strategic plan. I know we've been talking about it for over a year. It's been in working earnest for about 9 or 10 months. It's coming down towards the end. And I just again encourage all our commission members, we can provide feedback to Teresa and Jason regarding our thoughts on the strategic plan. And with that, I'll turn it over to Teresa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that, and I think that I have to note that not only did we have a quorum today, but we actually have every member of the commission here with us, which is, it's a real difficult task to get all of you together when you're all so busy in your other lives. So thank you for making the effort to be here with us. I also have to note that we have a friend with us today, a former member of the commission. Kent Scheller is in the audience from Evansville here with us today at the University of Southern Indiana, but certainly are on the commission serving as a faculty member. John Conant is here with us, obviously, as our member now from Indiana State. And I just have to say that it has been an extraordinary pleasure for me to work with every faculty member who's actually been willing to spend time on this commission. Our work is so enriched by your contributions, and Kent, you were terrific in that regard. It's great to see you back here again today, so thank you. It does seem like it's been a long time since we met, since we didn't meet in January, so during those times when we have a month in between our meetings, it's hard to bring you up to date on everything that's going on. Although I think we did a really good job this morning in the working session to really hit the highlights. I'm just going to provide some emphasis on some of those and perhaps a little bit of extra information about some of what we were talking about. We spent quite a bit of time, for those of you who weren't with us this morning, talking about the legislative session, knowing that we are more than halfway through this year's legislative session. Has been noted, we didn't have, for the commission, as aggressive a legislative agenda this year as we sometimes have. This obviously was not a budget year, and we've come off a couple years where we have had very aggressive sessions. So primarily we were really working on corrections with financial aid and issues related to teacher preparation in shortage areas, and we'll continue to keep you very informed of that as we move into the final weeks of the legislative session. We've been working very closely with both our legislative and our K-12 partners in all of these efforts, especially those related to teacher preparation and recruitment. There is also a bill that's working its way through the legislature, Senate Bill 301, dealing with Ivy Tech. I think that's going to be very important as it builds upon the important work we did in partnership with Ivy Tech in the report that we brought to you. We presented to you in an extensive way this morning the You Can Go Back campaign, and I hope you noted that we will be doing the official kickoff for that on Tuesday with the governor, and other agency heads will be there, representatives of the employer community as well. We're very excited about this campaign. This is a hard task to get students to come back. Patty Johnson talked about it in her introduction, a little bit, the great work that IUPUI is doing in this regard. But we have every hope of believing that this campaign, the way it's been orchestrated, the way it's been developed by focus groups really talking to people about it, our outreach today that we're going to hear from the employer community, that we have every reason to believe that we're going to be successful this time. And it really is an all-hands-on-deck effort to do that. Serving the adult population as this campaign really seeks to do, it's critically important if we're going to meet the needs of employers and if we're going to reach that 60% goal that we all have. Just recently, I returned from my first meeting as a board member of the Council on Adult and Experiential Learning, CALE. CALE has been really, they have been the soldiers in this effort for adult students for decades. And so I think my work with them will help us to bring back some of the best practices around the country to actually do everything we can to really address the needs of the adult population. In order to do all this work that we're doing, and that every time we finish a legislative session, we seem to have a little bit more to do as well, it's really required us to stretch as a staff increase our capacity and redefine some of our roles. As you know, recently, Matt Hawkins became the Chief Operating Officer, and we moved Mr. Chairman Dominic Chase, who you all know well, he's here with us all the time, to the position of Associate Commissioner for Finance and Human Resources. We don't always bring these changes to you, but it is clear that when it's a case of an Associate Commissioner, by virtue of the language in our bylaws, it requires an approval on the part of the members of the Commission. So I'll pass it off to you, Mr. Chairman, for purposes of a vote on the approval of Don Chase as Associate Commissioner for Finance and Human Resources.
So is there a motion? We have a motion and a second for the approval of these talented gentlemen. Trying to support your cause. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Matt, congratulations. Continued success to you. You're very welcome. Thank you, Teresa, for the report. And now we have on page 1 of your commission book, we have our minutes from our December 10th commission meeting. There's been a move to approve and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Minutes have been approved. We will go right into our public square discussion. We learned in our working session this morning about more details about the You Can Go Back statewide campaign. And of course, the campaign is the purpose of the campaign is to try to get 750,000 plus Hoosiers who have some higher education to complete their degree. So we would like to continue that conversation, but this time the focus will actually be on the specific benefits of this campaign to employers. So joining us today are 3 employers who will help us with employer engagement. I'd like to introduce and welcome Bradley Brewer, who's the Assistant Senior Manager of Human Resources at Subaru Indiana Automotive in Lafayette. Mark Hager, President, Specialized Print Products and Prentice Products, Fort Wayne, and Stephanie Krebs, Deputy Director of the Indiana State Personnel Department. We have Sarah who's going to moderate, and I just ask if you could give them a hand of welcome.
Really make the most of all the direct outreach and all the hard work that the colleges and universities have done to try to make it easier for adults to come back and complete their degree. Our commissioner has wisely cautioned us not to presume to know how employers are going to view the campaign, what messages might resonate with employers. So we're really happy to approach this today as part of a series of discussions with focus groups of employers where we've been doing interviews with employers directly, both large and small, talking with regional works councils and career council, partnering with the Chamber of Commerce and others to really figure out how to engage the employer community in a big way, because we really need to engage in a big way to meet the aspirational goal of 200,000. So I'm very happy to have basically a mini focus group today. Since not all of you will have the pleasure of hearing all the interviews and all the discussions we're having, we wanted to hear from big business, small business, and government as an employer to hear how the message is being received, help us craft our outreach to various types of employers, and figure out what the commission can do and what our colleges and universities can do to break down additional barriers, whether bid or received. So with that, I will just ask any of you to jump in, whoever wants to be brave, and talk to me about why is it important to you that the state have a better educated workforce?
As you know, Commissioner, I'm not sure I saw all I'll speak of. I would say that first of all, thank you for having me here. I do appreciate everything, Sharon. Also, I have the pleasure of serving as the chairman of Region 4 Works Council. And I appreciate Liz coming and Zach coming and talking to us and explaining to this endeavor and what we're trying to achieve as a state. It's important that we do get that information back to the employers and try to help engage our Hoosiers to get back to school. So it's very important to, let's say, advance manufacturing, the education. Our vehicles for us, for Subaru, are only getting more and more complicated, more and more computerized and automated, and at some point we'll be driving us around instead of us driving them. So we need education. We need our Hoosiers to be educated and to learn and grow and be able to develop as we develop in the future. That's why I think it's very important as we sat on the subcommittee for the Core 40, it's very important that we're preparing our high school students and then our current workforce to go back to college and try to get post-secondary education to develop them even farther so we can develop as a city.
Chairman Bland, Commissioner Lubbers, thanks a lot for having me today. Thanks to the Commission. As was mentioned, I represent the State Personnel Department for the state of Indiana. We provide HR services to all of state government, essentially. So for a little context, I want to talk about kind of the scope of our organization. We're the state's third largest employer. We're second to the federal government and Walmart, actually, with 28,000 executive branch employees at more than 70 state agencies in all 92 counties. So we have a very broad scope geographically, and then we also have a broad scope in terms of our mission. Each of our different lines of business essentially have a different purpose. The largest agencies that actually represent, there's 4 of them that represent over half of our workforce actually, are the Family and Social Services Agency, which manages the state hospitals, Medicaid, TANF, disability services, the Department of Corrections, focused obviously on public protection and rehabilitation, the Department of Child Services, protecting our state's most vulnerable citizens, and INDOT, managing the state's infrastructure. Also the State Department of Health, Department of Workforce Development, Department of Natural Resources, the state parks, revenue, all fall under our umbrella. Those are just a few of the over 70 that I mentioned. To kind of sum it up, it's really important to us that services are delivered effectively, efficiently, and within the constraints of law, policy, rule, and of course budget. To do that, we need the very best talent in a wide variety of fields. So we depend on our higher education system to enable delivery of the kinds of talent that we need in state government to serve our fellow citizens. Often we've got talented people in our ranks that have tremendous potential to further develop and become even more valuable public servants. In our case, our data shows us that we have upwards of 10,000 people that may be eligible for this program in our workforce, which I think is pretty exciting. And so I think post-secondary education is really a primary way to develop the raw talent that I know we have in our workforce already. And so we're really excited about the prospect of sharing with our employees a lot more about this program because we anticipate that there are many that this may apply to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee, for inviting me today. I run small businesses, and the growth of our companies, we run very lean operations. The growth of our company is dependent on people that are flexible, have good critical thinking skills, well-reasoned decision-making, entrepreneurial thoughtfulness. And we know from experience that regardless of the education track they may be on, a better educated workforce contributes to all those and allows us to grow our business. And so we're very excited about this opportunity for the state as well.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I've been concerned about how our outreach. I've spent a lot of time talking to Brad, and I certainly know what's happening with state personnel, but I've been really concerned about the small and mid-sized firms and their capacity to be engaged in this. In a former life, I worked for the National Federation of Independent Business, so I made a point of telling members of the staff that we have great people working in small and mid-sized firms, and our ability to find them and contact with them is going to be very, very difficult. So I think your voice is going to be really important today. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to say we can't presume that we know what the challenges are for firms to actually go and find these students or these employees now. We want them to be students again. So thank you for taking time, all three of you, to share your personal experiences with us.
I was also having the thought that I could use that car that drives you as we're doing all these work council meetings. So I told you you're going to be a focus group today, so I'm going to ask you to respond to what you're seeing on the screen, and members have it as a handout in front of you as to some of the points we're trying to make to businesses or suggesting that we make to businesses to explain or just hit on what they already understand, that better education is important for their employees. So I just ask you to sort of respond to what you're seeing. Does the message resonate? What resonates more and what resonates less than that?
In our business, we in the past have offered tuition reimbursement as a recruitment and retention tool. This is a policy that was changed at one point. Further down in the agenda, we'll talk about that. But those two, first two certainly resonate with me.
Sure, and in our case, again, because our scope is so broad, we're constantly recruiting. In fact, today I pulled our job postings, and we've got 477 job postings as of today, and everything ranging from engineers to healthcare professionals, nurses, psychologists, LPNs, substance abuse counselors, accountants, attorneys, social workers. But what's interesting, we're also challenged from the standpoint of sub-associate degree, perhaps certificate programs. We have great difficulty in identifying steam plant operators, electricians, plumbers, maintenance and plant foremen, HVAC specialists, semi-truck drivers, correctional officers, boiler and pressure vessel director, which was my personal favorite because I didn't really know what that was, so I got to learn a lot about that today. But in all seriousness, I appreciate the approach that you all are taking in identifying individuals that have some college or no degree at sort of every level of the spectrum of education. And I think from a recruitment standpoint, there's certainly great benefit to us in this program. So
I have to agree, the recruitment issue is very large for us. I think everyone that's had a newspaper in front of them in the past 12 months has seen our expansion. So we invested $420 million last year, another $140 million this year, and creating 1,200 new positions in Lafayette. Those positions are not only production, they're engineers, they are finance, they're production control, purchasing agents. Currently, we have to go outside the state in a lot of those cases to find the qualified people. And a lot of that has to do with exactly what we've talked about here is education. So we've tried to continue to grow internally our associates to develop and become the next level for the engineers. So much so that we offer free education. I think I talked to Mr. Lubbers about this before. We offer free education all the way up to bachelor's for every one of our associates through Purdue University. So we're invested in trying to develop not only our associates but our community as well. And obviously the retention piece is huge. That's an investment. At that point they feel that we care, the state cares about them as individuals and not just as a number.
Oh, could I ask, when you offer the free, do you get an agreement that they will stay with you for a certain number of years?
No. No agreement at all. We feel that the connection, the loyalty built by investing in them is really not doing so.
So is there anything on that screen that you would disagree with? Maybe I shouldn't ask that. Don't ask the question. You won't know what the answer is, right? Is there anything we've missed? Things that really matter to business and as it links to education that we haven't touched on in this sort of basic one-pager?
So I would just throw out, and again, I say this quite often, costs for most people are very, even with tuition reimbursement or tuition assistance, can be a major cost. If we have a person that's making a decent wage, but they're trying to go back to school and take 2 or 3 classes, they may have anywhere from $1,400 to $2,000 tied up for 4 months. Now, that may not seem like a lot to some folks, but to someone trying to raise a family at the same time to other themselves, it's a lot of money to have tied up in that period of time. We have an agreement with Ivy Tech, Purdue University, Ancel University for deferment. And because we have a tuition assistance program, at the end of the semester, the university actually sends us the bill, so the person never has to come up with the upfront money. That has encouraged a lot more people to try to get into post-secondary education. No longer the barrier of having the actual funds to supply. We take that out of the way, I think it's going to break down a lot of barriers.
Yep, Sarah, I think there's some questions too that we could still take.
I have 2 questions. First, that's an amazing program that you can actually have the university send you directly the money, and you know that cash flow is a major issue. So I'm curious as to find out kind of the mechanism by which you review or ascertain whether they actually take the classes they say they are taking. Move that bar forward. So that's one part of the question. And then a bigger question for everybody that I'd like to address as we review these things is the value of a college degree in the minds of U.S. employers and U.S. folks that work directly with this pool of talent that we have to keep hearing over and over that there are discrepancies in how the value of the degree itself is gauged, and I'd love to get a little more info on that. So 2 separate questions.
So the first one for us, we require them to tell us what classes they're going to take at the end of the semester. They're required to provide us the grades, completion, pass or fail, or a C or above. That triggers us to actually pay the invoice to Purdue or Ivy Tech. If that doesn't occur, the school already knows that they're going to bill the student. And we just have that arrangement. And I've yet in the last, I think this is our 3rd year, had anyone not pay or not pass. So that's been taken care of. So it hasn't been an issue. And for to answer your second part question, we have an educational requirement for several levels of our job, including some hourly positions that we would call a team lead position, or even our maintenance skilled positions. So education is very much a requirement. Not only is it a good product to have in hand in order for development, it's a requirement for us as a business.
To the value question, I think probably the best way I can answer that with the broad population that we're dealing with is tying it directly back to our wage data, which I did bring with me. And essentially, our average wage in the state, in our workforce, is about $40,000 to $41,000, depending on the day, because we have so much movement. Things change over time. Those individuals with a bachelor's degree are at about 43,000, so they're above average. Those that have some college or no degree are about 31,500. So you can see there's about a $10,000 differential there just in our workforce. And you have to remember too, in our workforce, our pay plan is fairly compressed comparative to some of our private sector peers because we're state government. So we're a little more compressed. So that $10,000 differential is pretty high. If you look at the high school or less than high school categories for us, we're at between 28,000 and 30,000, so even lower. So when I look at our wage data, as education level increases in our own workforce, we see the wages going up and up. And so I think that's probably the best way I can answer the value question with some quantifiable data because of how broad our scope is. That's what we're seeing in our own workforce at this point. So.
In our case, the value question, we would love to look at it as a return on investment, but we can't measure those dollars. Our sales don't necessarily go up, our costs don't necessarily go down. What we see though are happier people, who are much more engaged with our customer base, they're much more engaged with each other oftentimes. So it becomes very tangible what that value is. I go back to the conversation I opened with about their decision-making ability, and we benefit from that. We know that there is a return on investment, but it's a longer window. The retention piece allows us to capitalize on that longer window as well.
I have to say, I think to Stephanie's point, if you look at the degrees here, there are engagement on can go back. These are great figures to be able to throw out there, or at least showcase the fact that, you know, in corporations, these are requirements, and the jobs of the future, these are important. But I do want to get to the why it's important that those technology education is critical for that.
If I could add just one more thing. I meet with every new hire class we bring in, production associate through management, doesn't matter. I ask 2 questions. First question is, do you want to retire from here? And every one of them always say yes. Second question is, do you want to retire here as a production associate assembling your company? Rarely does anyone ever raise their hand, yes. So that tells me that every one of them wants to do something more, something better. So that's why we thought it was so important to try to do the free education. Because they do, they want to. But there's something barrier somewhere in their minds or in their family and their home. But they want that next step.
So speaking of those barriers, moving into having established that the education is valuable for each of your workforces, what have you done in the past? What are you considering doing to help remove some of those obstacles and support your employees as they go back?
As I mentioned, we previously offered tuition reimbursement to our employees. We offered it to both full-time and part-time. It was tied directly to the number of hours that they worked. That was an effective program for us. We discontinued it at one point, really tied to the recession. The recruitment and retention wasn't as difficult, and the revenue wasn't as great, and so we had to make some changes to our benefit package. We're considering reintroducing that now. I don't know really what the deciding factor will be, but it's certainly a consideration for us. We operated similar to Brad and Subaru, is that we didn't have any requirement that they pursue a specific area. It worked out really well for us.
So in the past, and currently, state government has done a couple of different things to support adult students who are in our workforce. Some of our lines of business, some of the agencies do offer tuition reimbursement programs that are specific to certain jobs or the mission of their agencies. We don't have an enterprise-wide policy around tuition reimbursement. In addition, we have had a negotiated, continue to have a negotiated discount with WG in Indiana for our employees. We're also an eligible employer for the Federal Student Loan Forgiveness Program, which I think we probably could talk about more than we do actually, because essentially it's a 10-year program. If you meet certain requirements during that time period, then your federal student loans can be forgiven after that point, which I know a lot of you are probably familiar with that. We offer a pretty robust internship program in the summers, and we have had students of non-traditional age participate in that program. And so that's been something helpful. This year we're looking at, I believe, around 150 interns, and we're very excited about. In addition to that, at the Government Center campus, right here downtown, we have a higher education fair on an annual basis that takes place to try to educate our employees about options available to them. In the future, what do we consider doing? I think we're still evaluating our options and working that out, but in our case, we've already established that in the aggregate education level directly correlates to salary for our employees, which I think is really a really powerful recognition, at least for me and my colleagues to see. Another thing we know is that average years of service of our employees is about 11.3 years, so our people stick with us for a while. And then Some of that, I think, is due to some of our incentives within state government that will reward longer terms of service, like the pension is a 10-year vesting requirement. And some is probably due to the culture and commitment to providing quality public service. But because we have such diversity in our lines of business, we have a lot of advantages, I think, in terms of offering career paths for people and career lattices. We can move around a lot within our environment with the same employer, which is really exciting for people, especially if they are working towards some of those retirement benefits. So in short, there's a value proposition for our employees who lack post-secondary education to stick with us, because they're already sticking with us anyway. If they know that they can make more wages, if they improve their education level, I really think that if we can better communicate these types of opportunities and that value proposition to those employees, that they will find themselves in probably a pretty good position in the longer term. So I would say that initially, what we're going to try to do is ensure that any eligible employee is aware of this program, how it works, and certainly how they can get access to the right resources to be able to determine if they want to engage in it or not.
Besides the free tuition and deferment program, we're fortunate enough that Purdue University has, and I've mentioned this to the commission before, a statewide pre-polytechnic on-site at SI. So fortunately for our associates, they run the classes as they would to our work schedule. So if somebody gets off at 2:30 in the afternoon, classes will start shortly after, so they do not have to try to work around our daycare issues or anything like that. So that's a benefit. The other thing that we have done as well to try to jumpstart folks into education is our first level of a lead position, it's still hourly. They're required to go through a 4-month training class. There are 3 college-level Purdue courses that they take during that 4-month class. So they earn 9 credit hours of post-secondary education through Purdue. It helps kind of open up their eyes that they can do. They can go back to school. It's not as scary as they anticipated it would be. So that kind of helps open their eyes to the possibilities of more growth. By allowing them to do that on the clock, getting paid, sitting with other people in the very same boat as they're in right now. So we've seen a very high success rate, probably 75% or higher, of people continue on post-secondary education after that class.
Brad, let's stick with you for a minute and talk about, so you've done those things. What challenges did you face as a large employer to get those all those benefits, at scale, and what is it that you maybe can't do as a large employer?
So obviously we face challenges just like anyone else when it comes to budgets, recession issues. The automotive market rarely continues on an upward trend for 25 years. So fortunately for us, we've had a very good trend for the last at least 7 years, if not longer. So we spent a lot of time researching and explaining the importance of education to our officers and to our corporate, our parent company, and showed them the investments were worth it by increasing our leadership development. That's where we started. We started with saying that, just because you grew up in the industry doesn't mean that you have all the tools that you possibly need to be a good leader. And let me show you why. So we showed them that piece and helped grow our leadership team, which then expanded our educational assistance program because they saw the benefit of that. Challenges going forward, you're still going to continue the challenges of cost. We spend a substantial amount of money in educational assistance, which we're happy with. As tuition increases at some point, it will continue to go up and up and up, and that cost is a significant investment. I talked about how much it is for somebody to come up with upfront money. 3 classes for us with Purdue on our statewide is still inexpensive. It's still $2,100 for the 3 classes. At some point, I can tell you when I started taking classes in the mid-90s through that same location, the class was less than $300 per. So now it is more than doubled in this last 15 years. going to continue to go up and up, and which will be a barrier for us to maintain that kind of cost. You know, we're going to be over 5,000 associates by the end of this year, so a significant amount of money for everyone to decide to go back into their bachelor's degree.
Mark, as looking at small businesses, what challenges do small businesses have that are maybe different from what Brad just articulated?
Yeah. Well, of course, we have the same cost challenges that Brad talks about. We don't have the impact that a large employer like Subaru would have, the ability to bring in university to teach in my facility, to work around my employees, and so that creates some challenges for us. You know, the other side of it is we do have the flexibility with our staff, and when we can afford them that opportunity, we do to take classes. In Fort Wayne, Northeast Indiana, we have a lot of universities there, so access to evening classes, weekend classes is not difficult, but we have seen where employees need a lot of flexibility in the enrollment process in particular. They've gone back, and so we try to make that available to them.
And then Stephanie, looking as a government employer, certainly face fiscal and political constraints that others might not. Can you speak a little bit to some of the challenges that the state and local governments might face in trying to support employees?
Sure. Yeah, I think the first challenge is probably fairly obvious, but given the size and scope of our operation, it's challenging sometimes, I think, to develop and implement policies that fit the business needs of the operation as a whole, because they are so diverse and varied, while allowing student employees flexibility. I know many of you have worked in state government before. It's sort of like kind of driving a cruise ship, except for there's a lot of cruise ships that are all being driven, but you're one entity, and so things move a little bit slower. It's part of the beast that we work within. But I would say, in some ways, from a policy standpoint, developing employment policies to support all these very business needs is a bit challenging. And of course, transparency in government, which is a very good thing, and the fact that we are stewards of public dollars, which we take very seriously, it makes it more difficult for us to offer financial incentives, of course, for individuals to seek education. And so those are sort of the two primary challenges that I would talk about. I think more generally, us as an employer, in terms of a challenge that this conversation has actually brought to light, is I think, like a lot of employers, we are facing the boomer cliff, like many other employers are. What we're looking at is today we've got about 4,000 of our employees that are eligible for full retirement. Keep in mind we have about 28,000 employees. By 2025, we're going to have an additional 9,500 that are eligible. And so we're basically looking at over 40% of our workforce, perhaps more, that's retirement eligible in the next 10 years. And so the question for our organization sort of becomes, from a cultural standpoint, what kinds of things, how do you manage, first of all, knowledge transfer, but then what kinds of things are attractive from an employer standpoint to that next generation of workers that are coming in. And I think the education component with the way costs have risen are very, very, it's a very, very relevant topic for us as an employer to start talking about. So I appreciate the conversation. That's another challenge, more relevant, that we are going to face.
Sarah, just, I know you probably still have questions going, but just one comes to mind, especially for Mark on the smaller and mid-sized business standpoint. Obviously, there's a whole spectrum of issues that businesses face that will affect how they kind of engage in this activity and buy into it, whether that be size of the company or the technical area of focus of the business. When you think about especially the small and mid-sized companies, what I've seen, some of the work I've done in our region, not on this specific issue, but generally in trying to help develop a next generation workforce, there's a lot of desire to be involved and to be supportive. But there weren't so many hats. They don't have, HR departments. They don't have the infrastructure at times to really be able to do it and to feel like they can do it effectively. And so there's got to be a hook, in a sense, that helps them say, hey, this is not only a a really good thing for our community, our region, our state, et cetera, but there's got to be a self-interest that will help them understand, you know, kind of down the road how it's going to help their company. Or even immediately down the road, because it's an attractive competitive advantage if they have it. So if you're going in to talk to a small business owner, or even a mid-sized business owner, what's the package of information, in whatever form? What are the pieces of the puzzle that you need to be able to throw out on the table and set in 15 minutes and say, hey, this is really important to be involved in, without it being, you know, just another one of these things that they hear and see. It'd be great to be involved with, but I've got limited time and resource. How do we catch them?
Well, in addition to owning my own business, as the Secretary alluded to, the NFIB, I serve as the Leadership Council Chairman for the NFIB of Indiana. We represent 15,000 small businesses in Indiana. I can tell you that the most common thing that we hear from our employers is the need for occupational education, vocational education is probably greater in small business than is the need for bachelor's degrees, advanced degrees. And so if we can tie something to just their basic educational needs without being specific to degree pursuits, they would definitely be interested in that dialogue. There's also a lot of concern in small business about the soft skills that aren't being taught. People showing up on time and look you in the eye and having a normal conversation with you. And so those are the concerns that we routinely. And so if there's flexibility built into this program that goes beyond bachelor's degree, then I think that it would help a lot. If that answers it.
Other questions?
Just want to comment, when Mark brought this up, is when people go back to school, it has a revitalizing impact on their lives, whether it's they're reading books, they're reading more than they've read before, so they're changing their habits, they're probably watching less TV, they're having to interact with students, and so just that can really bring people to life and impact their work experience too. So I think, sometimes we say we have to be learning a skill related to our workforce. I think just growing and lifelong learning can really bring life to a business if their employees have that opportunity.
One of the things that we also learned from the Gallup-Purdue Index and that we are rolling out with the Indiana College Value Index is that commensurate with education, not necessarily a four-year degree, but some sort of quality educational experience after high school, means that those people are more likely to be engaged in their job. And engaged in their communities. And so I think you get the double benefit. I think I certainly would be the first to recognize as the daughter of a small business owner who I watched struggle going up and down lots of times through the economy and no one to fall back on, that there is a unique set of circumstances that we have to be aware of with small businesses. And so to the degree that an organization like NFIB or small business councils that used to exist with chambers could help us in a collective way convey that message, and do it with language that is easily understood for what we're trying to convey. I think that's what we need to do a better job of. I think there's a big disconnect from the way we talk about the value of education beyond high school and the way especially small employers hear what we're saying. So you can help us in that regard.
I'd be happy to. February 24th is our next Leadership Council meeting. I would love to have you there. So we can talk to the members of the Leadership Council who would all hope to contribute to the dialogue as well.
Can I ask a question? Does the message to the employee that with your education you're going to earn more resonate with the employee, and how does the employer feel about that? I've had some occasions when I've run into employers who discourage their employees from going back because one, they didn't have jobs that they moved into, so they're going to go somewhere else, or they wanted them working and not going to school. And thirdly, in some cases, they were paid more in the job that they were in, and even if they got the degree, they were going to get by going somewhere else with the degree they were pursuing. Do you run into that at all? Is that either a program at Subaru, or do you run into Mark and Luke?
Yeah, the ability, we don't have a career ladder or a career lattice in small business. And so there are definitely opportunity challenges for employees. We never considered that a barrier. We certainly never discouraged anybody. I still subscribe to the idea that better educated people make better employees. And if they have more opportunities somewhere else, I've always encouraged my employees to pursue those opportunities. This is about bettering their lives, not just bettering my life, everybody. So that is a reality, I think. I don't know that there's a lot of people who discourage their employees from participating because of that threat. A little short-sighted.
I would have to agree, even with our business as large as it is, you still have barriers where I can't promote everyone, can't have 5,000 chiefs. So we just encourage them to go back to school, education-wise, develop for opportunities in the future, if there is opportunity in the future, but also remind them that they're setting the example for their children and their grandchildren. So a lot of them have went back and felt that and said, okay, now I know the importance, I understand, and now I'm encouraging them. I've had several associates tell me my kids are seeing me in school now and realize that it's not unattainable, right? So it's different. It's not the old factory setting it used to be. It's a big difference for us.
Other questions?
Yeah, Sarah, I would just maybe underscore a comment that's come up, and that is with the exception of SIA, which is doing fantastic. I think in the last decade, a heavy majority of jobs have been created come from small business. But in many ways, small business is much less connected with the university world than large business, and for lots of very thoughtful reasons. Placing graduates with a top firm comes with a lot of prestige, and a connection with that business to the university is positive, and it's much harder to communicate consistently with small business. So, Sarah, as you and your team are taking a look at this and really wanting to move the needle, and some aggressive goals have been set and moving that needle, the engagement with small business is going to be absolutely critical, and that's going to take some real strategy to carry out, different than connecting with large and medium-sized businesses around the state. And I think that's, to me, as we look at all of this, it's very exciting. That really is the biggest challenge. If you can connect with small business, that'll be a game changer, because that's where most of the job creation is going on.
I've shared the 9 strategies with our guests that are included in the resolution that you'll consider as your next business item. Rather than going through them one by one and having our panelists respond to them, I just maybe ask, of those strategies we've looked at and presented to you in terms of supporting, encouraging employees, supporting them financially, and helping them balance work life and family. Are there any words you would like to give to the commission members as they consider this resolution? Brad can go first.
Right, that's what
You said you're never short of words, right?
No. That's very true. I would say, one thing that I would ask commissions to discuss and think about, when I mentioned earlier about deferred tuition, that's been a huge impact to our employees, a lot. That taking that barrier of the initial financial investment. Now, I understand completely that not every company has tuition assistance, and some have removed it, some have that back in. But for those that do, and for universities, Purdue, IU, they can, we need to try to look at using deferred tuition to help people go back and take that barrier out of the way. It's just remove the barrier and then work on the person themselves to go back. Right now, that's an easy out for someone. They may want to, but I just can't afford it. You take that out of the way, I really believe that we'll see a better return, at least in the employers that do offer tuition assistance. We can see that. And then the final thing I'd say is, you did mention job knowledge transfer. That is a big issue for everyone. We're 35% right now retirement eligible for our staff as well, our entire workforce. We have kind of went back to the basics and looked at more, I don't want to say apprenticeships per se, but job knowledge training at the same time as education. They'll go to school for 2 days and they'll work for 3 days. And they'll get that job knowledge transfer before it's gone. I would love to be able to see more education when it comes to work and education at the same time. Internships are great. Not everybody can afford to do them all the time. Some students will focus just, let me get my degree done and then I'll worry about work after. We can incorporate more on the job at the same time of education. They'll get the job knowledge transfer that's leaving our workforce right now.
Why couldn't you lend the money to the student?
We technically could. We could technically do that type of lending. We've just been able to negotiate with the universities that we don't have to. To be quite honest with you, the Purdue University has told us that it's an option for everyone, just nobody exercises it. I don't think they really talk about it too much. So I think that it's out there, that opportunity is out there. WGU also does it with us as well.
Stephanie?
A couple ideas just on the strategies. One that we had toyed around with that I think has probably some merit is, in our culture, we have what we call a performance-based culture in state government, and everyone gets an annual performance review. It's codified in state law, these sorts of things. And as a part of that process, I'm not sure that there's been really a comprehensive focus on development in those processes. And so one of the things we're looking at is, how can we encourage managers to focus more and think in a more forward way about development of their employees. And I think initiatives like this, going back for further education, would fit within the scope of that performance review process. So that's something that we just started looking at, and we're really excited about the prospect there of doing some things to really beef up how we capture development. Secondly, I think the other comment I would have is the position we're in from a financial standpoint. It's not realistic for us to think that we're going to be able to provide tuition reimbursement, from an enterprise-wide perspective anytime soon. And so to the extent that the wraparound services that are associated with these programs, can help employees like ours that are not going to have access to that, to ensure that they're making the right decisions. Because I look at our wage data and I see that the folks that are eligible, are not making the kind of money that would allow them to really front costs. So I mentioned, we average about $30,000 there. So, it would be important to us to ensure that employees have access to, the right advisors to help them make, what is a decision that is a huge investment for them. It definitely has an opportunity to a huge return, but I would just say for us specifically, the advising angle is I think really important.
Mark, and reaction from you?
Yeah, and just as Stephanie said, one of the frustrations that our staff has talked about in the past is this enrollment process, that it's kind of confusing. It can be frustrating for them, not customer friendly in some cases. So providing some assistance in that area would be beneficial. The deferred tuition, never thought about it, would be a huge deal for our employees. So that's my takeaway for today, and also working with WGU. Encouraging employees to go back, I think, is very easy for any employer to do. Making them aware of the programs becomes very simple. This notion of balancing the school with other priorities is suggested as a time situation, but it's also a money situation. Child care is probably one of the biggest secondary reasons. They talk about the cost of education, but then they also talk about the cost of child care. So I may be going beyond the scope of this kind of program, but it's a real concern, and it keeps a lot of people from going back.
Great comments from all of you. I'll open it up to any further questions from commission members.
I think just a comment on child care is an interesting one, because I've got to believe, thinking of our workforce, we have an awful lot of single mothers. And the childcare will be available. Probably some of us have childcare problems with the poor issue. I don't know what you're
I imagine finding the childcare and paying for it are dual challenges.
Yeah.
I would support for that. Somebody that has experience that recently have to make very serious decisions. So what kind of job I can have due to childcare? Because, I think it's a struggle for many people, not just in being able to afford it or being able to have to work, but then find the time to keep all that going while you're trying to go back to school. That's some sort of bridge or some sort of help there is going to be very important. There are some companies that are doing that very well. I know, for example, Bradley has an agreement with numerous different child care centers that are near the company's headquarters, where they discount or have some sort of offset costs there for the employees of Bradley. So there are some models out there that would allow a person to offset the child care issue with work and study balance there. So that'd be an interesting one to explore.
With that, I'd just like to close by thanking all three of our panelists for all the information you've provided to us in the past, today, and for your continuing efforts and partnership in helping us meet our 200,000 Hoosiers completed by 2020 goal. So thank you very much.
We just want to echo that. Thank you very much for giving up your time and sharing your expertise, and how much of a sacrifice it is to spend time with us and be away from your places of employment. So thank you very much. So as our panelists have clearly articulated the importance of employer partnership and increasing college completion and work with working adults, we now have the opportunity as a commission to adopt a resolution encouraging Indiana's employers to partner on the You Can Go Back initiative. And you have seen the proposed legislation that is right there with this. Is there any discussion regarding the resolution?
I have an item that I'd like to bring out from the resolution panel.
Sure.
As we look at getting past the panel of the whereas items, when we get to the now be it resolved portion, sections 1 and part of 2, get fairly descriptive on the efforts that we encourage employers to do. And I would encourage us to add an item or a statement in there addressing that most employees use automated HR systems to manage your workforce, inclusive of looking at your paychecks, pay stubs, your benefits, and pretty much all company use. And I would encourage us to not just refer to the paper displays on the work area, but to also encourage employers to drop in banners and electronic information to their automated systems, so that we don't miss the vast majority of the employees that either have a lunchroom or that have disparate corporate headquarters that may not have the opportunity to have this, but to add an electronic medium to that statement as well.
So it's your recommendation that be added to
It is.
the language? Well, then with that, with the suggestion offered by Susana, is there a motion?
So moved.
So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor of the resolution as amended, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is approved. Thank you. And I'm sure we'll get the changed language. You'll see it in our minutes. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get, how are you going to word that? You're going to put on their pay stub? Is that it?
No, for example, for the company that we worked for last time, there was a PeopleSoft system or HR system. So you log in and your page populates, and then you can visit the numerous different things that are going on. So it'd be very easy to put on there. We encourage you to go visit this site. So just an encouragement encouragement or awareness behind the campaign dropped into the electronic system of communication, not just a public.
Thank you. There's no further discussion on that matter. We're going to move to our first academic degree program for full discussion. Actually, our only one for full discussion today. The Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering and Bachelor of Science in Manufacturing Engineering to be offered by the University of Southern Indiana. And I would like to invite Dr. Zane Mitchell from the University of Southern Indiana. He's the chair of the engineering department. Invite him to make the presentation on behalf of USI. Welcome, Dr. Mitchell.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present these exciting new programs that we're hoping to offer starting next fall. It's really been a vibrant time for USI Engineering. I took over as the department chair down there in 2006. I was the second department chair for engineering. The programs came about. You approved them as a commission in 2002. Our first graduates were 2005. In 2006, we got our initial accreditation from ABET. The number of graduates have really grown over the years. In 2006, our ABET visit year, we had 6 graduates. Last year, for the first time, we had 50 graduates throughput. In the 2015 year, academic year. So we've seen quite a bit of growth in the program. Our graduates are really making an impact on the region. The students come from the region. Great many of the students come from the region, and a great many of them remain in the region. And by a great many, it varies between 85 and 95% of the students gain employment in the Evansville region and stay there. And we know they stay there because they're participating in alumni events and helping to give back in our outreach events. We've been through the ABET accreditation cycle twice now, so we are an established engineering program. The current program, the Bachelor of Science in Engineering, we offer that with 5 emphasis areas. And the emphasis areas give students an opportunity to get a little bit of depth into the subjects of engineering that interest them most. And those emphasis areas are civil engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, mechatronics, and industrial engineering. By far, the most popular of those 5 is the mechanical emphasis area. And it ranges anywhere from 40 to 45% of the students and graduates in any given year are pursuing the mechanical emphasis. I often get phone calls from stakeholders, students, their parents, requesting discipline-specific degrees at the University of Southern Indiana, wondering if we have them, and wondering when they will be offered. Mechanical invariably is the one that they're asking about. A few requests for the others, lots of requests for mechanical. And I think nationwide, you would see that the trend is that most of the engineering graduates, that's the largest cohort of graduates, is mechanical engineering. So we think that is a great place for us to start as far as discipline-specific engineering programs, because a number of the students already in our Bachelor of Science in Engineering program will transfer over to a BSME program as soon as it's offered. We don't expect the only enrollees in a new mechanical engineering program would be from the current existing student population. We do expect that there will be a growth in enrollment due to offering Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. The manufacturing engineering program is a little bit different. We haven't had a groundswell of students who have requested that, yet I think it is and we as a faculty think it is a space that could be served in this state. Currently there are only 19 manufacturing engineering programs in the United States, none in the state of Indiana. There's one in Ohio at Ohio University, and then in Illinois they have one at Bradley University and one at Northwestern. If Hoosier students want to major in manufacturing engineering, they need to go out of state. And we think with the resources that we have at the University of Southern Indiana, we're well poised to offer that degree. And the Applied Engineering Center, a large laboratory facility that we opened 3 years ago now, 16,000 square foot lab, and we had $3.5 million in federal grants to put advanced manufacturing equipment in there, will help to service both the mechanical program and the manufacturing engineering program. Faculty-wise, we're well postured to offer both of these programs with the existing faculty members. We have the expertise on staff. For the mechanical engineering program, no new courses will need to be developed. For the manufacturing engineering program, only one new course will need to be developed. But again, these programs, or the discipline-specific programs have been requested by our stakeholders for some time. The students, the parents, we also have an engineering advisory board. I meet with them twice a year on campus. They come in, give us feedback as to what they want to see in our graduates and what they want to see in our programs. They have all asked for discipline-specific programs. So that is our request, and we think the programs will be well received by the constituency in Southwest Indiana, and will also serve the state. As we heard today, there's a need for manufacturing engineers, at least at the Subaru plant, but we have quite a bit of manufacturing in Southwest Indiana as well. So I'll open it up to any questions you might have.
What are the alternative opportunities of individuals who cannot get these engineering type programming there in Evansville?
In Evansville, currently, the University of Evansville offers 3 discipline-specific engineering programs. Is that what you're asking about? The University of Evansville offers a degree in mechanical engineering, a degree in civil engineering, and a degree in electrical engineering. They are a private school. The tuition rates are higher. They're good programs. They're very good programs. But they're not public programs. And the tuition structure is quite a bit different. They do not offer manufacturing engineering.
And then would you be able to share for the record if you know what that tuition differential might be?
It's going to vary quite a bit depending on where the student comes from, because I know the University of Evansville offers generous scholarships to residents of Vanderburgh County, which is also the county that USI is located in. But outside of that county, those scholarships aren't quite as generous. I think currently, and they're called the Ridgeway scholarships. I think it's around $10,000 per year that the students end up paying in tuition. There used to be a requirement that they reside on campus if they take one of those scholarships, so they would not be able to reside at their home institution. I don't know if that's changed or not, though.
And then what would be your price structure?
Our price structure is USI's tuition. We would be around $6,000 per year for tuition for the students, tuition and fees. So it's less. And as I said, the Ridgeway scholarships I think are only for Vanderburgh County residents, and we draw from quite a wider range than just Vanderburgh County.
Thank you. Any other questions, John?
Yes. Tell me the difference between industrial engineering and mechanical. No, not mechanical, but industrial engineering and manufacturing.
The difference between industrial and manufacturing is going to be actually a lot more mechanical. The The manufacturing engineer is going to take more mechanical engineering courses. They're also going to take courses in PLC programming, so an electrical course that the industrial engineers would not take. So the manufacturing engineer is also going to take a course in robotics. Typically, an industrial engineer won't take a robotics course. So I'd say it's more of a harder skill set than the softer skill set of the industrial engineer.
Kind of a hybrid.
Yes. And that's why it becomes a good fit for us, because the program that we have in place is already mechanical heavy. We have a advanced manufacturing program in place. It's a technology degree, a 4-year technology degree that they'll share lab space with the advanced manufacturing program.
So recognizing that I don't have a full history of Indiana's public engineering programs, kind of what's the difference if there's no new courses between getting a BS in engineering that specializes in mechanical engineering? It's all the same classes.
Yeah.
Getting a BS, what's the difference?
Actually, right now, a student that's getting a BSE could go through, take all the courses and have a degree identical to what we want to call the BSME. The difference is what it's going to say on that diploma. And some employers, it's very important to them that it have that discipline-specific designation on there. And to some students, and their parents, to some of them, it's very important that they go to a program that allows them to specialize and get that designation on their diploma. But we do offer all of the courses right now that are going to be a part of this BSME program, and a student could go all the way through with the BSE program at USI, do all of these courses, and have a degree titled the BSE. We are expecting a number of students to change over to BSME as soon as it's offered, and we expect that we would have graduates actually fairly quickly. We don't think it would be 4 years before we would have our first graduates. We would expect within 1 to 2 years we would have our first graduates, and probably accredit the program shortly afterwards.
Any other questions from the commission? All right, then we'll have the staff recommendation. Dr. Sal. Thank you, Dr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Just wanted to underscore a point that was made this morning, which is that should the commission approve these 2 degrees before you right now, one would expect additional specializations to be rolled out into separately named engineering discipline degrees in the future. Now that's some time away. I'm not expecting that to happen anytime soon, but there are at least 4 areas, 3 of which correspond to existing areas of emphasis within the current BSE, which we would expect civil, electrical, and industrial. And it would be important because when those degrees did come before the commission, we would want to reference the larger conversation that took place around the 2 that are before you now. I just mentioned 2 other things that we talked a little bit about the IU degree this morning, the BS and PhD in Intelligent Systems Engineering that the Commission approved in August of last year. You may recall Dr. Paul Piercy, Dean Emeritus of UW-Madison, who helped us think through the analysis of that degree proposal, and he was a bit expansive in some of his remarks in the sense that he went beyond the strict curricular questions that we really wanted to have him explore, but he also, I thought, made a pretty persuasive case that additional engineers are needed. Also in connection with the IU proposal, you may recall that a document that IU had included in its proposal was the 2014 Battelle study that was funded by the Lilly Endowment, that looked at economic development in southwestern Indiana. I think in many cases, that made a better case, that document, that study made a better case for the USI expansion than the IU programs, because the IU programs were pretty narrow, and if you're talking about a Bloomington program, those graduates, well, certainly some of them are going to stay in the state, and they're likely to go elsewhere as well. So from one point of view, at least one could argue that that study made a better case for the USI programs, and certainly identifying these separate disciplines has implications for accreditation. They would be separately accredited, and undoubtedly this would lead to some additional specialization courses in these specializations. When you have a named degree, that's what happens more so than when you have a BSE, which just has areas of emphasis. So there's a lot to this beyond what courses are currently available. So with that, I would offer the staff recommendation, which is the Commission approve the Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering and the Bachelor of Science in Manufacturing Engineering to be offered by the University of Southern Indiana.
We have a recommendation from our staff. There's been a motion to approve. There's been a second on the motion. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is approved. Congratulations, University of Southern Indiana. And Bernie, good to see you. And we have one item. I'm sorry, Ken. We have one item. Capital project for discussion. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me, I got ahead of myself. We have 3 degrees for expedited action. They're on page 51 of our books, that we've had material for the Master of Science in Nursing to be offered at IMU Southeast, the Bachelor of Arts in Spanish to be offered by Indiana University, and the Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Science in Physics to be offered by the University of Southern Indiana. There's a move and second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? It's approved. Now we're to the capital project. Capital project, College of Health and Human Services renovation and expansion, Indiana State University, and we will have Diane McKee, Vice President for Business Affairs and Finance from ISU, who will present from Indiana State University.
Thank you very much, Chairman Bland. I'm pleased to be before you today representing Indiana State University as we seek approval for the expansion and renovation of our College of Health and Human Services facility. This project was recommended by the Commission as a part of the 2015-17 budget recommendations and subsequently authorized by the 2015 session of the Indiana General Assembly. Some of you may recall this project has been a main component of the university's campus master plan since 2009. In fact, some of you had the opportunity in 2014 to tour the existing portion of the facility during your visit to our campus. The project has 2 phases or 2 parts to it. The first part is to construct a 87,000 gross square foot, 50,000 assignable square footage addition to the existing facility, to the west of the existing facility, to house classrooms, laboratories, seminar rooms, office, and service space to accommodate not only the current programs within the college, but also the 7 new programs that have been added to this college since 2010. Currently, the academic programs of the college are scattered throughout campus in multiple buildings, and in fact, even some of the programs are in an off-campus site. To consolidate the faculty and staff of the college into one structure will permit stronger interdisciplinary collaboration among the health profession, faculty, and students. The second part of the project, once the addition has been constructed and faculty in the existing facility are relocated to the new part, if you will, then we will go back in the existing facility and renovate that space for additional classrooms and laboratories, as well as to replace what is very obsolete and outdated mechanical and electrical systems. In fact, last evening I received an email from our facilities area informing me that the air handlers in the existing facility are barely operational now. So we are faced with a very aging facility. The College of Health and Human Services is the second largest academic college in Indiana State. For the fall of 2015, there were 3,270 either undergraduate or graduate students enrolled in this college. The renovation of this facility and expansion of the facility will allow for both the consolidation of current programs into one building and also allow for future strategic growth. And I would be pleased to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Staff recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. As Diane said, this was part of our 2015-17 budget recommendations. It was funded by the General Assembly, supported by the Governor, resubmitted to us, and reviewed by the Budget and Productivity Committee. We recommend approval.
Is it recommendation for approval? There is a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is approved. Thank you and congratulations. And we have capital projects for expedited action, which is on page 65 of your book. Is there a motion to approve? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. It is approved. And next, we will have Stacy actually do a presentation for us regarding the return on investment. We had a lot of positive attention coming from that. In fact, there have been reports, the first published in early 2013 provided a state level review of the value of college measured against the cost. The second report published later the same year provided campus and program specific return figures, industries of employment and salaries over a 10-year time horizon. Now, Stacy has previewed the data during our work session last month, and now she will present the final report, again, which will be found on page 69. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and you've taken away many of my comments here. Certainly, as today's public square conversation highlighted, there are certainly many ways to measure the value of post-secondary education. The Commission's return on investment reports highlight the labor market outcomes. And again, I wanted to note that these were developed in partnership with our public colleges and universities, as well as the Department of Workforce Development, and we've been working with them closely over many years. The latest, as Dennis mentioned, I shared with you the data back in December. Our latest update provides a greater level of detail with the wage data. We're now including wage data for short-term certificates as well as the longer-term certificates. We are actually looking at the student's program of study, in other words, at the major level rather than just the academic discipline. And new this year too, we're also including an interactive dashboard, which I hope to spend most of my time today walking you through. The data that I shared with you back in December can be summarized and condensed into the 3 points that are on the sheet that you have in front of you. We used 2014 census data to highlight the fact that higher education pays and that completion matters. This census data gives us a snapshot of high school diploma or equivalent, some college no degree, and
college degree at associate or higher. With our matched wage data, we can look a little bit more closely at the fact that the payoff increases over time and at each degree level. And so again, for the first time, we were able to fold in the short-term certificate, as well as the longer-term certificate, associate, bachelor, and master's. And the chart here is fairly self-explanatory, but please let me know if you have questions there. Also, with the more granular major level data, we were able to show that what you study matters more than where you study. And this particular chart up here just highlights 3 popular program majors: business, psychology, and nursing. And we broke it down by different types of four-year campuses, just to give you a sense that really it doesn't matter where you study. It's really more what you study. I have my Kleenex here too, sorry. So I'm going to walk over to the internet here and give you a show. Okay, so this is actually our first pilot effort to use the free public version of Tableau software. And this site is posted on our Learn More Indiana page, where it's much more accessible to students and parents. And we hope to, of course, steer more folks to this page as well. We have anticipated that we will be using similar types of dashboards with future reports, such as the college readiness. But for this start, we have bucketed the information into 3 basic tabs. The first tab highlights student costs, average student costs and debt by institution. And a feature of the Tableau is that as you scroll over these individual columns, you can sort as you wish. In this particular page, this is older data. This is from 2012, 2013. This is because we needed to capture year-long wage returns after the graduates. And so the types of information you're seeing here is just a little bit dated. But we're looking at graduates' average debt, the percentage with debt by institution. As we scroll over to employment by program, this is a fairly busy chart, but we have the ability to filter and see the most common areas of employment in Indiana for college graduates based on their program of study. And I'm going to look at, for example, education. So our filters are currently set at bachelor's degree level. We're looking at the statewide information here and looking at programs that fall under education. And we see here that 72% of those graduates who stayed in Indiana who graduated with education were employed in the K-12 industry. Now, if we switch that to associate level, the picture changes a little bit. We look at the majority of those folks who graduated with an associate degree in education ended up in daycare services. We also still have some in K-12, other things like family services, vocational, etc. It's important to note that these data are not occupation level, they are industry level. So, for instance, you could be, education is probably not the best example, but let's just say that you graduated in business. You could end up working in the restaurant industry as a manager, but we wouldn't know that necessarily because our data are only at the industry level, not occupation.
Is this just showing us this 1 year's graduates, or is this total graduates that we get trapped in the state? What is this data?
So that's a good question, and it's not highlighted here. This particular data set here for this page is a composite of multiple years worth of graduates. So I think it's the last 4 years, 2009 through 2013. And of course, there are always data limitations. We're only able to include information for where we have graduate cohorts of 30 or more, either in 1 year or in more than 1 year over time. I'm just going to highlight one more thing here, just a second. So if we look at that award level, the certificate level, we again see that the picture changes slightly. So it's just a tool to help get a sense of where these graduates are going. The last bucket we have here is salary by program, and this data is at the major level. Again, we can click and sort. We have the ability to filter by bachelor's, by all of the different levels of degrees. The default is statewide. Here we're looking 1 year out. We can also filter to 5-year or 10-year. We can identify by program, or we can scroll down. So again, it's just another tool to help give the end user a better understanding of one measure of the value of education. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the actual data. So we do include a page here that gives a little bit more information about exactly what those data limitations are. Again, we're looking only at those who graduated from Indiana Public Schools, who are earning at least above part-time minimum wage, who have earned at least 2 quarters or more of reported wage data, which we then annualized. We don't include those who were employed outside of Indiana or who were employed by the federal government or self-employed, and those who are continuing their education and have yet to earn an additional credential. So there's a lot of opportunity to continue to enhance these types of reports. We know that moving forward, working with the State Workforce Education Longitudinal Data System, known as INC, we might have the opportunity to pull in the Department of Revenue information, which would give us the self-employed and the federal employees. We do have the opportunity to perhaps get the occupation level data as well as just in addition to the industry level data. And so I do look forward to what maybe next year's report might bring. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Stacy. There's a question from Adam.
I don't want to get hung up on this, but it's always bothered me that when we compare the earnings of a high school graduate to the earnings of a college graduate, we just pick the average earnings of high school and the average earnings of college. And it would seem like to me if you were really to do it correctly, and I'm not sure it's possible to do it correctly, you would want to take 2 people. I mean, in a perfect world, you take twins with the same motivation, and one twin stops schooling at high school, and the other twin goes through college. And you would do, you'd have a whole bunch of twins, so you'd be averaged out. You'd have the same type of person with the same motivation, the same intelligence, the same, and it would be a much better comparison than, it's intrinsically biased by just assuming that if those high school graduates who didn't go beyond had gone to college and graduated, they would perform as well. And I've got to believe statisticians have thought about that.
Certainly, and that is one of the limitations to using census data, in that it's capturing a wide range of ages and timelines. So somebody could have graduated in 1968 with a high school diploma, stayed in the workforce, and is doing just fine. And so what we're trying to do with our wage data and matching the graduates that we have to the wage data is that we're looking at it cohort by cohort. And we're able to track those over a period of years so that you do have somewhat more of a like.
But there's this will be my last comment about it. There's self-selection. Those who choose not to go to college are generally less motivated, less hardworking, less organized, don't have the same soft skills that someone that, and perhaps with a lower IQ than the people who go to college. So it's not exactly a fair comparison.
Right, and again, I think I spoke to a little bit to this in December. One of the things that we possibly could do under the Inc. umbrella, again, maybe expanding the type of data that we're looking at, is to be able to follow those who do graduate high school as well as those who graduate college, and really look at this wage outcome in that manner. Those are good points.
Is this on the web now? Can we, in other words, this website, we can go on and
Yes.
play with it?
Yes.
So show what a 2-year certificate electrical engineer does versus a 4-year person in business school. Just kind of an example.
Let's see if we can get there. Okay, well, I'm gonna take you the back road here. Maybe.
I'm not sure I can do all this. I won't know what to do.
I'm right on the side.
It's just being really slow. Okay, so you're wanting to know by program what a typical or median salary might look like. I will note that we have discovered a few hiccups in the way that this particular page is working. But if I were to look at, what were your examples again?
2-year certificate in electrical versus a 4-year certificate in business school.
We might have to do a specific business. We do more than just business. We already have one.
Yeah, and also here we're only looking at the data that were available. So if there weren't any graduates with a certificate in electrical, we won't have their data. Or if there were just a few. So it's not pulling up for me here. I'm not so sure. Let's see. Let's find a bachelor's. Chemical engineering. This is it? Electrical and electronics engineering?
Yeah.
So 1 year out of graduation, a median salary is $60,354.
Versus, do a business.
Sorry.
Do accounting, huh?
I'm just going to do a general business commerce major.
The one that you pulled up earlier, a 2-year, the one that you just checked, that was 60,000, is that a 2-year?
That's a 4-year. It's a bachelor's degree.
Okay, I think he's trying to compare it to a 4-year.
Okay. So, I mean, we could spend lots of time here. I know that this is a business degree at an associate level, possibly 1 year out.
You know, I think it does, Tom, though, I think you do point out, I think one of our challenges with this is, how do we make this so that people will actually use it? I mean, if we could have, if you're writing a paper, we can tell all kinds of people who, drive them to this and say, we can provide all this information to you if you're an economist and you want to know something about Indiana. But, I think we're getting closer. This is the first time we've had this interactive tool. But I think we always need to think about how is it actually going to be used by the people who want to have used it, and make it as easy for them to do that as possible. So
I think it's a great idea.
that it may be that they're, just like we did that when we were having LQ Marketing present you those 5 easy questions at the beginning that drove people to the college match in a very simple way. We may need to have something at the beginning that ask the question, what are you trying to figure out with this website? And then if you're somebody who's writing a paper, you go one place. If you're trying to find out compare costs because you're a student going to college next year, you go through something different. So, we need to take this great information, which has never been done like this before, which gives more people the opportunity to use it, and figure out how to make it more user-friendly, I think. So I would really encourage you to go on yourselves and say, I tried to do this and I didn't understand how to do this, and we'll use you as sort of a test market.
But I wonder if it would be better to get a bunch of students to do it. I mean,
Well, I think
we are handicapped. We are not a good test. I mean, seriously.
No, you're right.
But
I was just on there and I had no problem.
you're not handicapped. You're under 30.
Thank you for that. I will not dispute that statement.
But I think the market for this is high schools. You want this information in the hands of parents and students when they're sophomores in high school, as they're beginning to think about, all that, the sooner the better.
Yeah, Junior, go into electrical engineering so you can take care of me when I retire.
That's definitely the biggest user.
I would get high school students to
Yeah,
try
no, I
it.
think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea.
Some of these schools, mine is rated by themselves. I mean, business schools, engineering schools, they're combining this and say, you want to make more money,
That's a
become a business.
Well, thank you for the great conversation about it. This is a great tool. And Stacy, thank you very much for your work, and thank you for your updates throughout the process. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, as we discussed this morning, the commission is charged with approving the student aid awards amounts each February for the following academic year. The student aid grid is in your agenda booklet on page 75. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor of indicating are approving the 2016-2017 grid indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And it is approved, the 2016-2017 Franco Bannon Award schedule. And we have information items in our booklet. You find on page 79, is there any old business? Any new business? I will note that our next meeting will occur on March the 10th here in Indianapolis. If there's no other business, we are adjourned.